In this video, we are going to help you play your first game of Infinity N5. Welcome to the Infinity Institute from the Dice Gods. My name is Hydra, and as I say, in this video, we are going to get you playing your first game of N5. If you've been watching the series so far, you know that we've covered the basics, we've covered some core concepts, and even a little bit of lore. This video is very much about getting you to play your first game. Now, I'm not talking about 300 points, tags everywhere, hacking, guys dropping from the sky, things peering from camo. This is not that. The objectives of this video are much more focused, but they're about building a foundation for you to play N5, be a competent, in control, focused player, and not get overwhelmed by what can be a very intense system. Before we get into that, thanks as ever to our patrons and channel members, including Sean Colburn, Chaos Discordia, Riddick Wolf, and Joe Rogers, who are at the higher tier and doing amazing work in supporting us, plus all the other patrons and channel members. If you can, please consider signing up and subscribing to do that. That will get you access to additional resources from this series. All of our members and channel supporters will be getting downloads of lists and cheat sheets and all that kind of stuff to make this video that much easier to do at home. So if that sounds good, please do that. If you can't do that, do like, share, subscribe, all that kind of thing. That would be very much appreciated. But now, in this video, what we're going to cover is a very focused game, a very cut down game, and that does mean that some of the rules that we're going to be talking about are true to a certain extent. Why do we do that? Because there are certain things that if you build them in at this point, it just becomes rules within rules within rules within rules, and it becomes this overwhelming mass. So the idea of this is to get a very focused game going for you and a friend of your choice, and to get key concepts in your head. Infinity is very much a game based on processes and concepts that when you can do them instinctively, when you don't have to think about them, the game becomes much easier to play, much easier to master, and you kind of understand that the more nuanced rules, the deeper rules, are based on exceptions of core concepts. So if you understand those core concepts, if you know them instinctively, then what comes later becomes that much easier to grasp and get hold of and understand without actually having to sort of bend your brain into a pretzel shape. So with that said, let's get into it. And here we go. We're going to get into mission 1 and 2 of Learning Infinity. The explanation we've got coming up will include videos as well as diagrams and bits and pieces. There are a lot of examples here. So whilst this video may have quite a runtime, a lot of it is clarifying with examples what things actually mean. So I think that's more valuable than just kind of saying the rules say this. So let's get into it. What are we going to learn in game 1 and reinforce in game 2? We're going to look at the structure of a game, turn sequence, how to spend an order. This is a crucial skill. I can't underscore that enough. Knowing the correct process for spending an order is a fundamental skill in Infinity. If you get that right, you're going to have a great time. If you get it wrong, you and your opponent are going to have a trash time. So it's a really important skill to learn, and we'll discuss that more when we get to it. Then we're going to have normal rolls. Face-to-face rolls, this is also a crucial skill because it's the most common type of dice roll you're going to do. Saving rolls, hopefully you're not going to do many of those, but we just want to discuss them anyway because it might happen, you never know. Cover, that's a really important thing. What skills are short skills, and how to resolve an order with dodging, moving, shooting and stabbing people. These are all important life skills I think you'll agree for any war game. Not in life though, but anyway, in the war game it's crucial. So, what are you going to need? You're going to need a table with terrain. Now we are going to discuss terrain layouts later and sizes and things like that. These scales are 55 by 40 centimetre. That is the mat, the battle mat that you get inside the Essential Start Here box. And 80 by 60 is the battle mat that you get inside of Sandtrap. If you don't have something that small, cordoning off a small area on a bigger mat would be ideal, because we're not going to be using a lot of miniatures here, so you're not going to be travelling vast distances, as will become clear as we go forward. So if you have a full 4x4, 4 foot by 4 foot board, which is what Infinity is normally played on, you might actually not get to see each other. Or you will, but not very much will happen. It'll be a very boring game. You're going to need dice. How many dice do you need? 3 each is, for this particular mission, the sweet spot. Then you're going to need tokens. In this case, we are going to need 3 order tokens per side, 1 per trooper. Tape measure. Now, we're going to be running this in inches, even though I've just given the dimensions above in centimetres. I'm sure it makes sense to somebody, it doesn't to me, but anyway. We will be running in inches because that is what I play in. Infinity can be played in centimetres or inches. So times 1.6, the size that I say, and that's roughly what it will be in centimetres. Anyway, we'll figure it out. 6 miniatures, 3 from one faction, 3 from another. So you're going to need 3 miniatures each, and it's about an hour-ish. Hopefully a lot less, but maybe an hour-ish is what this is going to take. Okay. Recap. So in our last video, we talked about some core ideas and fundamentals, and I'm going to recap those very, very briefly. First, this is a profile. There's a lot on here. You're not going to use most of it. That's all you're going to use. So this is a full profile. This is what we're going to use for our first game. The rest does not matter. We don't care about it. It doesn't matter what it does. We do not care. Simple as that. This is what the skills that remain on there are. MOV, which is movement, so how fast a trooper moves. CC is close combat. BS is your ability to frag people in the face. PH is physique, so that's how well they dodge. ARM is armor. I don't know how they come up with these. It's a mystery to all of us. And Vita is Vita, which is actually how many wounds you have. It used to be W, it used to be wounds, but then you cause wounds with shooting, so it was deemed to be confusing, so it got changed to Vita. And that's just the world we're in now. So move, CC, BS, Fizz, ARM, and Vita are the only things we're going to be dealing with. Nothing else matters. We do not care. Orders. We talked about these in depth before. At the start of your active turn, 1 order is generated per trooper that is alive on your side. So in this game, you're going to start with 3. So it's 3 troopers, and therefore you will get 3 orders per turn. As those troopers snuff it, as they die, you will lose orders and therefore be able to do less stuff. Therefore it's important to keep your troopers alive. 1 order lets you do up to 2 skills. Orders spent as you wish, so that means that you can spend 1 order on each of your 3 troopers, or you can take all 3 orders from your order pool, as it's called, and spend that on a single trooper who goes charging off across the board on his own, shooting people willy-nilly and having a generally good old time. Both legit tactics, you can split it up as you want. 2 on one, 1 on another, 3 on one person, 1 on each person. The way you spend your orders is entirely up to you, and it's one of the great things with Infinity. Whereas a lot of other war games, you have to activate, or you get 1 activation per miniature per turn. With Infinity, you can choose how many times you use 1 trooper in a turn. That means when you have your really heavy hitters, the tags, the big robots and stuff like that, you can just pour orders into them generated by the rest of your army to batter your opponent with, which is exciting. Your active phase ends when all of your orders in your pool are used. Arrows, we discussed as well, they are generated during your reactive phase. So while your opponent is having their active turn, you are having your reactive turn. You generate 1 automatic reaction order, 1 arrow per trooper who can see an activating enemy when an order is spent on that enemy trooper. There are no limits to arrows generated per turn. So if you're having a reactive phase and you've got your 3 troopers all stood out there looking across the field, and all 3 of them can see a trooper who has an order spent on him, all 3 of them may ARO to that trooper. They may respond to that trooper. If that trooper survives and he activates again, all 3 of your troopers may then also react again. So spend another order on him, you can generate a whole new set of arrows, and away you go. Hypothetically, that means that it is possible, if your opponent has 3 regular orders to spend in their active turn, that you will generate up to 9 AROs during your reactive turn if you have 3 troopers alive. So yeah, AROs, pretty dirty, but they're accurate. They're generated at the point where you see somebody do something. Game overview. What, when? Right. The game structure. So each game is split into rounds. Each round is split into 2 turns. Each player has an active and a reactive turn per round. So let's go back to the start on that one again. Rounds. There are normally 3 rounds in a game of Infinity. Each of those rounds are split into 2 turns. So just talking about yourself, you're going to have an active turn and a reactive turn per game round. So over the course of a full game of 3 rounds, you'll have 3 active turns and 3 reactive turns in total. That is your full game. At the start of your active turns, when it's your turn, you will count all of your live troopers and generate the order pool that I mentioned before. During your active turn, you will spend your order pool on your troopers to do things. When you have run out of orders, your active turn ends and you become reactive and your opponent becomes active. During the reactive turn, a player generates and spends AROs, as we talked about a minute ago. So, that's how that works. That's the general game structure. Let's look at our core processes. This is the important stuff. So spending an order. Spending an order is the fundamental thing inside of Infinity. It is also the thing that people, you start off not knowing what you're doing, you learn it, you get quite good at it, and then you get hot trash at it, and then you sort of realise that that's a really bad thing and you get good at it again. And then over the course of your Infinity career, you will yo-yo beautifully between I'm a god at declaring my orders and spending my orders to, dear Lord, have I ever done this before? Why does it matter? Let's talk about why it matters for a second. When you're spending your order, you are telling your opponent what you're doing, when things are happening, all this kind of stuff. It is crucial that they are very clear on that, because they get the ARO, because they get the ability to respond to what your troopers are doing. It's fundamental that they are clear on what you're actually doing and where you are in this process. So who the order is going on, what your first short skill is, or your basic short skill, and what your second short skill is, and that there's a pause between that basic short skill and the next skill that comes after it. These things are really important because they get to declare AROs at certain points. They have to know what you've done and that it's now their time to ARO, so that they can, bluntly, it's your job to communicate that clearly. So this process needs to be second nature and it needs to be done well. So what can you do when spending an order? Spending one order, which in this game you'll have 3 of. You can do a basic short skill and a basic short skill, a basic short skill and 1 short skill, which is not the same thing, or a long skill. Now we're not going to do any long skills in this particular game, but they are a thing. Because otherwise the question is, why are they called short skills? Because there is a long skill. You ain't doing it today. Don't worry about it. We're fine. So what are these skills? A basic short skill is move or idle. A short skill is BS attack, CC attack, or dodge. All of these are being broken down later. So just so you know what they are, that's what we're going to be doing. It is important to engage your opponent. As I say, it is your job to go, hello, I'm doing a thing, so that they're looking at you, okay? It is your job to declare clearly, to be like, I am doing this thing with this person, okay? And it is important that you take your time. Bad players will declare rapidly and not give their opponent time to respond, to declare their own AROs, will not give them space to make decisions and to evaluate what's going on. They will just try and railroad them through, basically. A good player will be clear, concise, and give oxygen to their opponent to do something, to respond, to play the game, to be involved. If at any point you are in a game and your opponent is just going, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I'm going to roll some dice, you are within your rights to say, slow the heck down, let me think for a second, I'm involved here too, my dude. Because there are certain things inside of this game that you can trigger at certain points. For example, there are troopers who go down on the board during deployment, but you don't actually place anything on the board to say they're there. You take a photograph of where they are, or you make a note of where they are, but they're in full hidden deployment. You may then choose when you pop them out. Now, if your opponent is having their active turn, and they are moving a trooper across the board, and they go move, and it comes into the line of fire of that hidden trooper. They don't know that that hidden trooper's there. But they go move, and then I'm going to move again. They have declared what their short skills are. You think, well, he's moved and he's moved. So I'm going to pop the guy out of hidden deployment. He appears here and he shoots you. And then your opponent goes, oh, no, ooh, if I'd have known he was there, I wouldn't have done that second move. I'd have shot. Well, you declared. Well, yes, but I wouldn't, if I'd have known, I don't want to do that. I want to take that back. By them not giving you space to ARO, by them not giving you the opportunity to make a slow, considered decision about what you're going to do, we're in this horrible situation where technically they double declared it's their damn problem, but that's going to be a feels bad moment. But you can't undo what's been done because your hidden deployment trooper has been revealed. They previously didn't know that you even had one, but now they do, and they know where it is. So what happens? If you give him the ability to take that second short skill back so he can shoot you, do you then get to relocate the hidden deployment trooper? Or does he just go back where he... You end up in this really sticky, messy situation because somebody didn't go, I'm going to move, and I'm going to move again. There was no opportunity to make a declaration. So this process is really fundamentally important for the outcome of the game, for the enjoyment of the game for both people involved. So you will need to get this right. You will need to focus on getting this good. So what does it actually look like? This is the process itself. Okay, this is what you'll do over and over again. There's a couple of ifs and buts, but predominantly this is how it works. First thing, engage your opponent. And by that I mean, look them lovingly in the eyes. I mean really stare at them, make it a little bit awkward, just so that they know that you are talking to them. And make sure they're staring back at you equally lovingly. There should be a real sort of heat and energy to the air between you. It should be crackling slightly. Something's about to happen. It's very exciting. So engage them. Make sure they're clear on what you're doing. Then declare which troop you're going to activate and place an order by it. So orders, as we discussed, you can have order tokens for this mission. Hold a order token in your sticky little mitt and place it down next to the trooper that you're going to activate. So there is no ambiguity between either of you that a thing is happening and who it is happening with. You then declare your basic short skill, and that is, for this game, either move or idle. Move, if you declare move, you measure and place your miniature in its final spot, and then you look lovingly again back at your opponent and you ask them if they are going to ARO, if there are any responses to the move you just made. One of their troopers, or any of their troopers, may respond if they can draw a line of fire to your trooper at any point during that activation. So if you moved across a gap and you started behind a building, you ended behind a building, but you crossed an alley, as you crossed that alley, if there was somebody at the other end and they could draw a line of fire to you, they may respond. That is perfectly legitimate. They can do that thing. You then declare your second short skill, which can be another basic short skill, which is the move or the idle, or it's another short skill. So not basic. If they want, is this one ain't basic, this is the advanced stuff, so this is the close combat, this is the shooting, this is the dodging. If you declare another move, you measure and place them in their final place as you did before, and then you request more AROs because you may have moved into the line of fire of an enemy trooper who did not previously have line of fire to you. If they have gained line of fire during that second short skill, they may then declare an ARO. Note, if they could see you in the first short skill, and then they see you again in the second short skill, they would have had to have declared it in the first short skill. The response would have happened there. We then resolve the order by rolling dice, and the effects of whatever happens of those dice rolls happens at the end. And that is your order. That is the order spent. That is one of your 3 orders spent. So engage, declare the trooper, declare your first short skill, ask for arrows, declare your second short skill, ask for arrows, resolve dice, have cake, profit. You will do that over and over again. And the difference in this process between this beginning game and when you are playing 300 points at the Interplanetario in Spain in front of Bostria and everyone else as they stare in wonder at your gaming skill, the difference between here and there is nothing. This is the process, this is the same thing you'll do, this is the thing you need to learn. So you will repeat this over and over again. Now the real fun bit. Everything here happens at the same time. So, an order is a contained moment in space. And every declaration that happens, every action that happens inside there happens simultaneously. It all occurs at the same time. So that means that if you declare, let's say, move for your basic short skill, and then you declare shoot for your second short skill, that shot can be taken at any point during your movement. Your trooper can run and gun. Where he starts and where he ends is irrelevant to where you take your shot. You can declare, at this point as I run across the alleyway, I shoot down the alleyway. That's perfectly legitimate, that's absolutely fine. And it is one of these things that can feel, especially if you're used to other war games, gives you a little bit of a headache. Because normally, in a lot of other war games, you have a movement phase, and you have a shooty phase, and you have a picking your nose phase, whatever. That one's for you, Arash. You have these distinct phases, not so in Infinity. An order is a self-contained sliver of time, and it all happens at the same time. So you may charge and shoot at some point during that movement, and declaring that shot does not stop your movement. So if you're going to move 4 inches and you're going to shoot at the 2-inch mark, you still complete the 4-inch movement. It can be a little bit brain bending, and it can be a bit painful the first time out. But when you get the hang of it, it starts ruining you for other systems. So be aware of that when you'll start getting annoyed at the fact of, but I want to shoot when I'm stood there, not when I'm over here. So it is with Infinity. Everything happens at the same time. Everything's simultaneous. Let's have a look at spending an order. So this little Nox Trooper gets an order placed by him. He gets declared move. He moves. To end there, we ask for any arrows. And at the top there is a Securitate who gets shot at, and yeah, that's the end of that order. The Securitate would get the opportunity to respond in that situation, so they would probably dodge out of the way, if that had any sense, and the Nox Trooper would declare the fire, as I say. So that was place the order. First basic skill is move, followed by second short skill of shoot for the Nox Trooper. To the move, the Securitate on top of the building would get the opportunity to respond, and he could dodge or whatever he wanted to do. So that is the basics of a core process of spending an order. That's what we're going to do over and over again. At that point, with everything declared, we're going to roll dice. That will come up in a minute. In fact, right here. So there are several different types of dice roll in Infinity. The first one we're going to deal with is a normal dice roll. This occurs when either there are no AROs, so your guy is just doing a thing and no one can see him, or the enemy declares an ARO which doesn't impact the active trooper. So if you're trying to do a specific thing, let's say you are opening a box, or you are healing another friendly trooper, if an enemy can see you do that and they respond and they shoot you, for example, but you still want to do the opening of the box or the healing of the person, that becomes a normal roll, because your ability to heal or open the box is not impacted by the shot coming in at you. There are also AROs which don't impact an active skill. So what that means is, if you are doing something like, I don't know, so for example, if you're stuck, if one of your guys has been locked inside his armor, there is an ability to basically freeze somebody inside their armor. If that's happened, and it's happened through hacking, then your trooper may only be able to reset. It's basically trying to reset their armor so it opens up. If somebody is shooting you, then your ability to reset is not impacted by their ability to shoot you, and their ability to shoot you is not impacted by your ability to reset. So you would roll to reset and they would roll to shoot you. There is no interaction between those things. So how does a normal roll work? To be clear, that there's no interaction will make sense when we get to the second type of roll in a second. The process for a normal roll is check the attribute of your skill, check for any modifiers, sometimes there are, and generate a success value. Then you roll your die, or your dice, depending on what the case may be, and every roll equal to or under your success value is a success. Those points are crucial. Success with infinity, where you roll a d20, comes from rolling equal to or less than a target value, which is called a success value. Your success value is the product of an attribute of a skill, or an attribute of one of your troopers, stat, if you will. It can be impacted by modifiers, and then you get this success value. You are then aiming for that or less always inside of infinity. If you've come from a previous version of infinity, that's across the board now. It didn't used to be. Saving throws used to be different. They used to be the other way around. You used to have to get higher. Now they've been brought in line, so great quality of life change there. So equal to or less is success. So let's look at success values a little bit closer. A success value is what you need to do a thing. For example, do a BS attack. So shoot someone, do a CC attack, stab someone, dodge, not be shot or stabbed. It's basically what dodging enables you to do. The process is the trooper attribute plus modifiers equals your success value. So if you want to shoot somebody, you would take your BS value of your trooper, you would add in any range modifier for your weapon, any cover modifier for your target, and that would give you your success value. These will be covered in more detail when we look at BS attack skills. So, we're going to do an example of a normal roll here. We have a success value of 15. How we got to a success value of 15 is irrelevant. What that means is any roll on a d20 of 15 or less will be successful. 3 dice, we roll a 12, a 16 and a 3. That means we have 2 successes and 1 failure. Let's look at a normal unopposed roll. The heckler here is going to move up to the box and try and open it. So he declares move, gets into base to base, declares open and rolls a 3. That will be a successful opening of that box because they have a whip, I think 12. They're quite clever. So he needed 12 or less, he got a 3, the box is open. Here is where we have AROs. Now, he still wants to open the box, so he runs up to it and declares open. And then those 2 horrible nomads, the moderators, both shoot at him in response. He rolls a 4, so he'd still open the box. They would then roll to shoot him in response, but he would have succeeded in opening the box either way. The box will have been his, job done. And then the moderators that were responding would have normal rolls to hit him. Okay, that's a normal roll. Doing a thing, against your success value, job done. Then it gets to face-to-face roll. This is when it gets juicy. So face-to-face roll occurs when an activating trooper receives AROs which it responds to. For example, if the heckler in the previous video had decided that he was going to move up to the box, those 2 moderators shot at him, and he chose to shoot back, then he would get a face-to-face roll against each of them. It would no longer be a normal roll, it would be a face-to-face roll. The process of a face-to-face roll is slightly different. For both players, active and reactive, you check the attribute of the skill of the thing you're doing. Check for modifiers to generate your success value. Roll your dice. You then figure out your successes. Again, everything equal to or under your success value is a success. You then take, as an active player, your successes, and the reactive player takes their successes, and you compare them. You cancel, and they cancel, any enemy successes with a lower value. So those successes that are lower than your opponents, or your opponents are lower than yours, are then cancelled as if they failed. So you're removing dice from your opponent, you're removing whatever happened. Successes of the same value cancel each other. If they're successes. You know what I mean, or you're about to know what I mean. Let's look at that in practice. So here we are, we have an active player and a reactive player doing a thing. The active player is going to have 3 dice with a success value of 12, and the reactive player is going to have 1 die with a success value of 9. The active player rolls an 8, a 14 and a 3, giving us 2 successes and 1 failure. So So we remove that failure and we end up with the 2 successes, the 8 and the 3, because the 14 was above the 12, so it was a failure that comes off. So we've got 2 successes here. The reactive player rolls a 6. This is also a success. However, the 6 is higher than the 3 of the active player. The 6 of the reactive is higher than the 3 of the active. So the 3 gets cancelled. But the 8 is higher than the 6, so the 6 is cancelled. In this face-to-face attack, what would have happened is the active player would have achieved 1 success. I'm going to scroll back and do that one again. So again, 3 dice, aiming for 12s on the active player, 14 is a failure, that goes. Leaves us with 2 successes, 8 and 3. Reactive player comes in, rolls a 6, that's a success, this is good. The 6 cancels the 3 from the active player, leaving the 8, and the 8 cancels the 6 from the reactive player, leaving 1 success of an 8 overall. Awesome. Hope that makes sense. Let's do that again. This time, the active player does not do so well. They get a 2, 2, 3. These are low values. This is not great. But they are all successes. This is good news. But dang it, the reactive player comes in with the 6. The 6 is higher than the 2, is higher than the 2, and is higher than the 3. So all of the active player's successes are cancelled, and the reactive player has 1 success left. So if this was a shoot, if this was BS attacks at each other, the active player shot 3 times, missed 3 times, the reactive player shot once and hit. Infinity is a violent game. It is a dangerous game. Even if it's your turn, you can still lose troopers like it's going out of fashion. And this is exactly how the face-to-face roll. You think you've got it, you think everything's great, and then somebody pulls that rubbish. It happens. But if they don't do that, they may be even worse. They may do a critical. Also known as a crit. A crit occurs when a player rolls their exact success value. So if, when everything's applied, you need a 12 and you roll a 12 on a d20, that is a crit there and then. The result of critical, it cancels all non-critical enemy successes, even if they're a higher value. You also get an additional saving roll for critical CC and BS attacks. So if you're stabbing somebody in the face and you do it critically, they have to make an extra save and could lose an extra wound. If you are shooting somebody and critically succeed, again, you've done it unpleasantly, there is a possibility that they will lose 2 wounds. They need to make an extra save. Criticals cancel criticals. So if everyone's critting, if it gets stupid and there's crits flying everywhere, then you're going to cancel each other. Let's look at this in practice. So here we have the active player has had a very good day. They have a success value of 12. They've rolled a 2, an 11, and 11. Awesome. Our reactive player has a success value of 9, which they duly roll. The reactive player has achieved a crit. Their success value was 9. They have rolled a 9. This is good. So what that does is instantly it cancels the 2. We can see that 9 is higher than the 2. The 2 is going to go. Fine. But also the 11s. Because although the 11s were a higher number, they weren't crits. With the 9 being a crit, it cancels those 2 11s, takes them off the board, and suddenly you're making your opponent make 2 saves if you were shooting or stabbing them or whatever you're doing. Crits sometimes turn up at the most beautiful moments. My personal record, little anecdote for a moment, is using a heavy machine gun to shoot somebody, and it was a Hail Mary. And when I say it was a Hail Mary, I was critting on a 1, so I could only roll 1s to be successful. And I can't remember what my opponent was on, but they were on a good amount, 10 or 12 or something like that. So statistically, I should have died. I was throwing 4 dice. I was confident that something could happen. My opponent shot, they hit me, but they didn't crit. And I was throwing 4 dice with the heavy machine gun, because that's how many dice they throw in the active phase, and I rolled 4 1s. It was some time back, but the look on my opponent's face is still etched in my memory, and I can't tell whether I'm proud of that or not. But yeah, my dice turned up, 4 crits on a 1. There's nothing you can do in the face of luck like that other than hope your save dice behave. They didn't. He died. It was great. I loved it. Right. So again, here we are, set up again. This time the active player, they rolled those two 11s again, but they rolled a 12. So they've actually rolled a critical success as well. So the active player has hit their success value of 12. The reactive player has hit their success value of 9. Let's get rid of the 11 so it's nice and clear. We're now crit versus crit. They cancel each other. Crits cancel each other. Even though the 12 is a higher value than the 9, they are crits. That's the only thing that matters. Crits cancel. Nothing happens in that situation. Both troopers look at each other slightly embarrassed because they did an epic shot, but maybe they shot each other's bullets out of the air. Maybe they bounced off each other's knives. Who knows? Something happened. It was epic, but it didn't result in anyone getting hurt. So, you know, good news and bad news. We're now going to move on to saving rolls, also known as SR. That may seem redundant, but as we progress through these games, you will see that certain troopers have abilities that modify SR. So it's worth getting into head that saving roll is SR now, because you're going to be using it. So when does this happen? It happens when a player is successfully attacked. So when they have been hit by a close combat attack, or they've been shot, or something like that, something that they didn't want to have happen has happened, they now need to make a saving roll. How does this play out? The process is pretty straightforward. We take the possibility of survival of the attacking weapon. We add cover if applicable. We add the arm value of the target, and that gives us our success value. There is that wonderful phrase again, success value. As before, all rolls equal to or less are successes. Crits don't actually make any difference other than it's a success. It's just a normal success. And your trooper will lose 1 wound or structure per failed save. Let's look at that in practice. A heavy machine gun is being fired at the Krizaborach here. The potential of survival, the PS of a heavy machine gun is 5. The Krizaborach is not in cover. The Krizaborach has arm 5, so he's been hit in this situation. It has happened. All of that stuff's been done. All the BS attack's been done. We're now figuring out what happens next. So his success value is the potential of survival of the weapon, 5, plus cover. There's no cover, so 0, plus arm, which is 5. So that ends up as 5 plus 5 equals 10. His success value is 10. He will roll 1 dice for every successful hit, and every dice roll of 10 or less will result in a save. So equal to or less than. If he rolls an 11, he's going to lose a wound. He's going to lose a vita. Simple as that. But what about cover? Cover's kind of important, but it's also kind of simple with Infinity. You are in partial cover when a targeted trooper is in base-to-base contact with a piece of terrain that is between them and their attacker. So this is only for range stuff. Doesn't apply in close combat. You have to be in base-to-base contact. It doesn't matter if it's 1 or 2 mil off, you have to be touching it. So communicating when you are or are not in cover is important with your opponent. Why does it make so much difference? Because your troopers are trained. If somebody is slightly out of cover, they're going to exploit it. If they're hunkering down behind a wall and they can't see very much, it's going to make their shot harder. So base-to-base contact with a piece of terrain between them and their attacker, that is the only time you're in partial cover. The piece of terrain has to obscure the line of fire to the target. So you have to not be able to see part of the miniature. Line of fire is really important. For the first few games, play that if you can see a trooper, they can see you. There are fire arcs inside of Infinity. You can only see the front 180. But for this first game, I would keep it very, very simple and only do the very basics. So what impact does partial cover have? The partial cover gives your attacker a -3 BS mod to their BS attack, and it gives the target trooper +3 arm to any saving roll. That's all it does. -3 to be hit, +3 to save. That's all that cover does. You will notice that I've been referring to partial cover. There is full cover, but if you're in full cover, you can't be seen. So we don't care about that right now. It's not relevant, to be honest with you, to what we're doing in this game. But yes, partial cover, -3 BS, +3 arm, That's what it does. Let's look at partial cover. Here is a Nox trooper who's in cover. He is now out of cover. He is now in cover. There you go, partial cover. You are welcome. So now that we've got the understanding of partial cover, we're going to do this example again. The heavy machine gun with potential survival 5, with a Chrysoborach in partial cover now, and with a Chrysoborach with arm 5. So we get the potential survival plus cover plus arm equals the success value. Potential survival's 5 plus the +3 arm for being in cover plus 5 for the arm of the Chrysoborach equals 13, not 10. So our success value is 13, which is kind of useful. He's got a 15% increased chance of surviving this experience, which is a nice place to be. So, skills. This is when we are doing things. We've now looked at how we spend an order. We've looked at how we do dice rolls, which is how we resolve those orders. Now let's look at what we can actually do. So skills occur when you're spending an order. You have the basic short skills, which is move and idle, which has to be the first thing you declare in an order. And you have short skills, which are the thing you can declare second, along with another basic short skills. That's your BS attack, your CC, and your dodge. Let's go into these in some detail. Move. You use the MOV attribute. The first use of a move skill in an order lets your trooper move up to the first MOV value of their profile. If you use another move skill, then you can move the second value of MOV on their profile. You cannot move in ARO. So here's a Hollow Man. The first move skill that he declares lets him move 6 inches because his MOV is 6'2", and if he does another move skill, then he moves 2 inches. So if he was to declare, for example, idle for his first basic skill, then he wouldn't move anywhere. And if he was to declare move as his second skill of his order, then he would move that 6 inches. So the first time that you use a move skill, you use that first value of MOV on your profile. Always, always, always. That's MOV. That's move. How does that look? Here's how you measure movement. So this is the correct way to measure. We go from 1 point on the base to the same point. That's a 4-inch move from the front to the front. This is a bad way to do it. We're kind of flopping around that tape measure, it's sort of there, and then we kind of pick him up and he kind of sort of around, yeah, it's about 4 inches, good enough. Or measuring from different points. So we start by measuring from the front of the base, and then we place the back of the base at the end. That's a full extra base width distance that miniature moved. So from 1 point to the same point on the tape measure is a good move. Anything else is not. There you go, that's a move. That's how that works. Let's go idle. Idle is not based on the attribute. What happens? You do nothing. Your guy stands there, has a little bit of a look around, questions life choices, does nothing. You are fulfilling the requirement to spend a basic short skill of your order expenditure. So your first skill you declare has to be a basic short skill. Idle is basic short skill. You have done that. You may then move on to the next thing. Why would you use idle? If you are engaged in a firefight and you are stood in a firing position where you can see your target, you declare idle. You don't need to move anywhere, you don't need to go anywhere, you just need to tick that box to achieve the basic short skill. So you go, I'm going to idle. And your opponent then has to do their arrows, which is crucial because you can then bait out arrows. What do we mean by that? I mentioned earlier that there are troopers in this game who can be hidden. So they're not on the board, they're completely gone. In that situation, if you are visible to an area and you idle, then your opponent will have to declare if anything is coming out of hidden deployment. It'll have to reveal itself to shoot you, or if something's there. It's called a marker stakes, it's camouflaged, it'll have to reveal itself to shoot you. With that information, with all of the arrows coming in, because you're not moving anywhere, you're still stood there, with all of those shots coming, you can decide what you're going to do next, whether you're going to dodge, you're going to shoot back, whatever you're going to do. So baiting out arrows with an idle is a legitimate tactic. You may not idle in ARO. You can not declare an ARO, but idle is not a technically ARO skill per se. Well, you wouldn't declare it at this point. Next, now we get fun. Fun. We are going to start shooting some people. For the BS attack, this is shooting. We use, unsurprisingly, the BS of the attacking of the trooper who's doing the thing, who's doing the skill. What does it allow you to do? It allows you to fire one weapon. Weapons with more than one shot, which is called burst, may split their fire among multiple targets during the active phase only. So if your trooper stood there, finds himself confronted by 3 enemies, and he has a burst 3 weapon, then he may stick 1 shot into each of them. Or he can stick 3 into one, 2 into one, and 1 into another. It's entirely up to you. You can split your burst in active phase as you see fit. If you move as your first short skill, so you've travelled that 4 inches, you may take these shots at any point in that movement, but all of them have to come from the same place. So we mentioned earlier about moving across a corridor. Can't be seen at the start, can't be seen at the end, but halfway through, 2 inches along a 4-inch movement, you can see clearly an enemy at the end. You can then fire all of your shots, your full burst, into that target at the end of the corridor. If you can see multiple enemies at the end of that corridor, you can fire shots into multiple ones of them, just the same. But you can do it at any point during that movement. Again, this is back to orders happen all at the same time. So it's really important to get your head into that orders happen all at the same time. So you can choose to take the shot at any point during your movement at all. Absolutely fine. If you use BS attack in ARO, which you may, then the burst of your weapon is reduced to 1. That will become more relevant in a second. So how do we resolve a BS attack? You declare your target or targets. So you say, right, I'm going to do BS attack for my next short skill. I'm going to shoot this guy and this guy. I look at the BS of my attacker. I check the range to confirm the modifiers based on the weapons profile, because different weapons are good at different ranges. I check for cover, as we talked about before. If a piece of terrain that the target is in base-to-base contact with is between me and them, if it obscures them in any way, shape or form, I get -3 to my BS. Then I confirm my success value. So the BS that we started with of my trooper, plus a range mod, plus a cover mod, gives me my success value. I check my burst. I roll 1 die per burst. And then for every roll that is equal to or under my success value is a success. It's a hit. What does that look like? Let's look at a weapon profile to start off with. This is a full weapon profile for Infinity for combi rifles. Combi rifles are the most basic and ubiquitous weapon in the game. For your first game, we don't care about that stuff. This thing, don't worry about it. Irrelevant. We are only caring about the PS, the probability of survival, the B, which is the burst. That's your burst value. You see that underneath B it has 3. That's because a combi rifle shooting, BS attack, inactive phase, throws 3 dice. Simple as. Then we have our range modifiers at the bottom there. Range modifiers are expressed in a way that is designed to confuse and confound new players. So it says at the top there, on range on the left-hand side, green, +3, 16 inches. What that means is, between the ranges of 0 inches, well, 0.1 inch, and up to and including 16 inches, you will get +3 to your BS for shooting the combi rifle. If you're at 16.1 inch, up to and including 32 inches, you're in the yellow band, you're at -3, etc, etc, etc. So that figure, when you see these range bands of 16 inch, 32 inch, 48 inches, up to and including, is the way to think about that. Potential survival, you saw it with the saving throw. The lower the PS is, the more unpleasant the weapon is, basically. There are some weapons in the game with sort of PS of 4. I saw one the other day of, I think it's close combat of PS3. So there are some decidedly unpleasant weapons in this game, but as a good average, 5 to 7 is the kind of mid-band of everything you'd expect to see. You'll also want to know how many bursts. Average is about 3. we have one weapon in the game with burst of 5, heavy machine guns, Spitfires, which are light machine guns, a burst of 4. High burst weapons are good, but you're not using those today. You're going to be using combi rifles, which have a burst of 3, and that's it and all about it. Don't complain. We'll get onto the bigger stuff in a future game. So that is a weapon profile. So let's check range for a BS attack. Let's do the actual process. So here, the Nox Trooper on the left is shooting the Securitate. He checks his range. From the same point on the base to the same point on the base. The nearest point on the base is what you measure there. Here we're going to do BS attack. So we're going to spend an order on the Nox, BS11, BS12 and Securitate. We check that range, as you just saw a minute ago. See, that is nicely 8 inches. So that gives us +3 to our BS from the combi rifle profile there. Let's get into it. So what we know so far. Nox Trooper, BS stats 11, the Securitate, BS stats 12. There is our combi rifle. We know that we're getting +3 for range because we were underneath 16 inches, we were at 8 inches. So both of them, they're going to shoot back at each other, are going to get a range mod of +3. Neither of them in cover because they're stood in the breeze, because they were just feeling a little bit brave. Therefore, we have a success value of 14 and 15. So the Nox Trooper, BS11, +3 for range, +0 for cover, gives us a success value of 14. Securitate, BS of 12, range mod of +3, 0 for cover, success value 15. So with the combi rifle, as we say, we have a burst of 3. So the active player would throw 3 dice, the reactive player would throw 1. So in this case, the Nox was shooting, so he'd have a burst of 3 and the reactive would have a burst of 1. This is how that shakes down. So our Nox, who was after 14s, throws 3 dice, gets an 11, 2 and a 3. These are all good. Congratulations, Mr. Nox, good bit of shooting there. Our reactive Securitate has a success value of 15. He rolls a 7. This is also successful. And we do the face-to-face process that we did before. The 7 cancels the 2 and the 3. The 11 cancels the 7, and we end up with 1 hit from the Nox on the Securitate to be saved. That's how that works. Back again, because that's a bit complicated. So BS11, BS12, good range, +3/+3, cover 0, 0, success value 14, success value 15. Being able to do these quickly, being able to figure out your success value for your shooting is a key skill. Fortunately, range mods for weapons are standardized. So a heavy machine gun has the same stats across all factions. A combi rifle has the same stats across all factions. So when you learn these range mods for your weapons, you will know, you'll know it for everything. Cover, as we know, is only ever -3. So it either is or it isn't. And if it isn't, it's 0. And if it is, it's -3. So then we get the burst value. Burst value is defined by the weapon profile. So here we have a burst of 3 for the combi rifle. If you're reactive, you're doing an ARO, your burst is always 1, apart from when it's not. Infinity is a game of exceptions. For this first game, your burst is always 1. And then we get this situation, 3 dice versus 1. The face-to-face roll, although the active player has been successful across the board, the reactive player threw higher than 2 dice, so they go. But then the active player managed to get that 11, which cancels the 7, and the Securitate takes 1 hit. That's how that shakes down. CC attack. This is the first indication of variation of a theme. Let's read what we've got here. So the attribute used for a CC attack is CC. You need to be in base-to-base contact with an enemy trooper, and then you can stab them. You just use 1 die, and you can use it in ARO. The process for CC is the same as shooting, but there's no range, and there's only 1 die. There's no burst for CC at this level. You will find that is a theme throughout a lot of Infinity. This skill is exactly the same as this one, just with these tweaks. So a CC is a BS attack, but in base-to-base contact. Later, when we come to hacking, hacking is a BS attack, but at up to 8 inches. They're the same thing. They run through the same process. So it's why committing these processes to memory is really, really important. So again, just like with BS attack, we declare target, we check the attacker's CC, we don't need to check range because we have to be in base-to-base contact to do it. We confirm the success value, which is the CC stat, we roll 1 die, every roll equal to or under the success value is a hit. That's CC, that is it. That's relatively simple and straightforward. Are there more advanced rules later in the system? Yes. Are we going to use them today? No. Do they matter today? No. They exist, but don't worry about it. Then we come to dodge. Dodge is, I don't fancy this, no thank you, not at all, not once, not ever. We use the attribute of pH to facilitate a dodge. It basically allows you to avoid an attack. If you're successful in your dodge, it allows your trooper to move up to 2 inches in any direction that you see fit at the resolution of the order. If at any point that dodge is cancelled in a face-to-face roll, then the movement doesn't happen. You only ever roll a single die for a dodge, and it is compared to any and all shots or attacks that come into you. So if you're in a situation where there is one of you and there is 3 of them and they shoot at you and you dodge, you roll 1 dice and you compare it to the attacks from all 3 of the people shooting at you. Can you dodge an arrow? Yes, you can. So, resolving a dodge. Declare your dodge, check your pH. Your pH is your success value. You roll 1 dice. If successful, you compare it to all incoming attacks. Then you compare as usual with the face-to-face. If the dodge beats all attacks, then you move your trooper up to 2 inches. So if you are being shot by 3 and you only beat 2, and the third one managed to get a hit on you, whether you survive or not, well, you'd need to survive for it to matter, but that 1 hit that comes through stops you from making the move. The only way you get to move that 2 inches is if you are the best die roll. Let's look at that in action. So here we had a trooper. They got shot and didn't fancy shooting back. It's their active phase, so they decided to dodge on a 10. They got 2 shots coming in from 1 enemy shooting at a 12 and 1 enemy with a success value of 15 shooting back. In this situation, the active player scored a 5, which is successful, and the 2 reactives scored a 3 and a 2. So they both have shot back and they have both technically been successful, but that 5 is higher than both of those reactive dice rolls. So it cancels both of them. None of the shots happen, and the active miniature gets to move 2 inches. That makes sense? Hope so. Should do. So, because they're lower values, they both get cancelled and they're both gone. If, however, we end up in this situation where we have the active dodging trooper has rolled a 5, so they have succeeded in their dodge. They're up against that 3 again, but also a 7. Now that 7 is successful. The 3 is cancelled by the dodge of the 5, but the dodge of the 5 is cancelled by the 7. So the active trooper, who was dodging, doesn't get to move their 2 inches and has to now make a save. So let's put this all together in an example order. Here's our core processes with more information put around. This is what we're looking at the start. So, our core process for spending an order. We engage our opponent. We declare which trooper you're going to activate by placing an order next to it. You declare your basic short skill. For this first mission, that can be move or idle. If you're going to move, you measure and place your miniature in its final place. You then request AROs. The reactive player may declare BS attack, CC attack, or dodge. Those are the only ARO options in this game. The active player then declares their second short skill, which can be BS attack, CC attack, dodge, idle, or move. If they do move, they measure and place the miniature, and then they request AROs, where the reactive player may again BS attack, CC attack, or dodge with a trooper who did not see the activating miniature during the first basic short skill. So if they saw them during the move or idle, they can't now decide that they want to shoot. They had to declare that as soon as they possibly could. We then resolve the order by rolling the dice, apply the effects, repeat, and everything happens at the same time as discussed. Let's get into this. Let's see this in practice. So here is our friend again, our little Nox trooper. He is going to have an order placed next to him. He's going to declare move. He moves up. He gets into position. He sees At the top, that Securitate decides to take a shot and takes a shoot skill to fire 3 times up at that trooper. So how does that work out? This is how that would actually be declared and work. We declare our opponent, say we're going to activate someone. We're going to declare this Nox trooper down here. Our first basic short skill is going to be move. He then moved, was placed in his final position. We requested arrows. Now in this situation, the Securitate doesn't fancy it today, so he dodges. The Nox trooper then declares a second short skill, which in this case was BS attack. We then roll the dice. So here's how we resolve that BS attack from the perspective of the Nox trooper. We declare the target, which was the Securitate. We check the BS of our trooper, which for a Nox trooper is BS 11. We check the range, which was 20 inch. It's over that 16 inch band, but below the 32, so it's going to be BS -3 for our shoot. We then check to see if that Securitate was in cover, and yes, he most definitely was. So there's another BS -3. Here we confirm our success value. That is the BS of 11, plus the range mod, which was -3, plus the cover mod, which is -3, which gives us a success value of 5. We look at the burst value of the combi rifle, which is 3, so we're going to throw 3 dice, trying to get a 5. That is how that BS attack will be resolved. However, the Securitate, who didn't fancy it, has declared a dodge. We take his physique, his pH value, which is 10, and that then becomes our success value. So the Securitate needs to roll 10 or less on 1 die to avoid these 3 incoming shots, which will hit on a 5. So the active player, the Nox, is shooting on a 5, a success value of 5 on the left there, and the reactive player, the Securitate, is dodging on a physique of 10. Our Nox rolls an 11, an 8 and a 3. So against a success value of 5, there is 1 success there and 2 failures. Our Securitate rolls a 2. So while it's successful, and those other 2 failures from the Nox disappear, it is itself cancelled by the 3. The 3 is a high value on the shot from the Nox trooper, so then the reactive dodge for the Securitate is cancelled, and he cops 1 to the face. The Nox was shooting using a combi rifle with a potential survival of 7. The Securitate was in cover. The Securitate has arm 1. What that gives us to make this saving roll for that 1 successful hit that went through is a potential survival of 7, plus cover, which is 3, plus the arm, which is 1. So the Securitate needs to roll an 11 or less to avoid being damaged, taking a wound from that shot from the Nox trooper. There's a success value, 11 or less. Unfortunately, the Securitate rolls an 11. That results in the loss of a Vita of 1 wound. And the Securitate only actually has 1 Vita on their stats. So that is an unconscious Securitate in this situation. That is a full order expenditure. That is that done. What impact does that have on the game? Well, when the Nomad player with the Securitate starts their turn and they count up how many troopers they have who are not dead, they are going to be down 1 regular order because they've lost the Securitate. So by the Nox trooper shooting and killing the Securitate in the Nox trooper's active phase, active turn, when the Nomad Securitate player has their next turn, they're going to be in order down because they're a trooper down. So yeah, that is a full order expenditure all the way through from declaring your order, resolving your shooting, dodges, face-to-face rolls, and then a save. That one's probably worth watching a couple of times, to be honest with you. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Now we're actually going to get into who is coming to play. Who should you bring and run on this first mission? As I've indicated, we're going to be running basic troopers. We are going to be running combi rifles only. You don't need anything more because we are focusing on process only. These processes are other things. You know, when you finish this game, you finish your first games, success isn't having won. Success is how great were my declarations, believe it or not. They are so important to this game, but let's look at what you should run. Your army list, keep it simple. Each trooper should run 3 identical troopers. The troopers you'll need should be light infantry, which is indicated on the army builder, and silhouette 2, so that's S2 on the stats of their profile. They should have no more than arm 2, they should have no more than BS12, and they should be armed with a combi rifle. For most factions, that's entirely achievable. What if your faction doesn't have those, because some factions don't? Then you're going to proxy. You're just going to put stuff in that does the same job, and we're going to bend the rules a little bit to make it work. The aim here, as I say, is to learn the processes and concepts, so faction flavour is stripped out. You'll get to faction flavour, that will come later. But right now, too much flavour, because that flavour comes from rules, that comes from equipment, that comes from concepts that you don't need at this point. It'll just add to the confusion. As you saw at the start with the profile, we stripped out everything, all the different weapon options, all the different loadouts, even down to taking the pistol off them. You don't need that for your first game. So keep this as simple as possible and focus on getting your declarations and your dice rolls right, because those are the fundamental base foundations of this system that I cannot stress enough are just essential for you to pick up. Essentials, they should call a range that would really help. Anyway, by the by. So what does that look like? Well, if you're running Sand Trap, that would be the 3 Fennec Fusiliers that come in the box. This is the profile that I'd recommend you run. So just a combi rifle. Ignore the rest of the stats that are on there because you don't need them. This is one, if you're planning to do this mission, just take a screen cap of this. Unless you're a member or you are a Patreon, because these will be available for download shortly from, they'll be available to you guys. There'll be cheat sheets for each of the armies that I'm about to talk about, including little prompts so you can just print off an A4 sheet and have it with you, and that'll run you through how to complete your game. So, Fennec Fusiliers for Sand Trap, or the Senku Troopers for JSA. So this is again Sand Trap. So those guys go up against each other quite nicely. That's great. If you have Essentials start here, then you have the Kaisotsu, which are in there. Now, you're going to need 3 of them. So what that means is the Shikami that's in there will be a stand-in as a Kaisotsu for this game. Just use all 3 miniatures, use them all as Kaisotsu for this first game. And equally for the Essentials start here, for Pan-Oceania, don't use the Orc that's in there, use Fusiliers, because that will be more than enough. That'll be absolutely perfect. So the Orc will do the job of a Fusilier for these first games. From previous battle packs, or the most recent battle packs, if you want to take Operation Blackwind, which came out just 18 months ago, something like that, the Thorokatai, so you should take them for the Steel Phalanx, but have their arm count as 2, because it's normally 3, but have it count as 2. Trust me, yeah, better. For the Dailami that are in Blackwind, run them as Gulam with combi rifles. So you can use the same stat sheets for combi rifles that are on the previous page, and just use the Gulam stats with the bits that are missing that I've indicated from the army builder. Why combi rifles? Because normally Gulam have rifles, and rifles aren't great close up. So to even the playing field a little bit, run them as Gulam, but with stolen combi rifles. With Operation Crimson Stone, which is the one that came out before that, the Nomad Alguaciles are perfect. They're combi rifle, light infantry, run those 3. Bundles of fluff and happiness. And if you want to run the Ariadne side of things, then run the Rokots, but use them as having combi rifles. Because again, rifles, not great close up. This is a close range game. Keep that simple. Right. If you don't have any of those, you don't have the Essentials or the Sand Trap box, then at the start here we talked about light infantry, silhouette 2, arm 2 or lower, BS12 or lower, and arm with a combi rifle. Every faction pretty much has those, so find and run those for your particular faction. Put it in the comments if you're not sure what you should run. So what's on the table? We're looking at our battle space now. Your terrain. Keep it small. You only have 3 orders. You are not going to be going very far. Most troopers will move 8 inches in a full order. So they'll do a move of 4 inches and a move of 4 inches. You are not getting across a full 4-foot board with 3 orders in a turn. It's just not happening. Keep it simple. So the mats that come in Sandtrap or Essential Start here are perfect. Keep the level of the game low. So you will have seen wonderful images of infinity tables with all this height and ladders and stairs. You do not have the orders to be climbing stairs. Keep it level and low. Keep it simple. And just make sure when you set your table up that there are no lines of fire from board edge to board edge. That doesn't help anyone. You need to be able to move tactically. You need to be able to approach your opponent. Where can you get terrain? Sandtrap's got it in. The Essential Start Here box has got it in, or CB does scenery packs. You can also get terrain from all over that. You can 3D print the stuff. It's entirely up to you. But you can see on screen on the bottom right there, that is a scenery pack from Corvus Belli. That gives you the concept, the sort of volume of terrain that you need. It is not a lot. Do not go nuts. Too much terrain is as bad as too little. There is a very fine line between the two, and getting a sweet spot will take time, but you'll get there. But to help you out, this is the setup for Sandtrap, and this is perfect. Just use everything that's in the box, set it up as they have in the box, there. It's absolutely fine. What you want to do is you want to give troopers somewhere to hide and some way of moving up the board. These things are important. So that kind of setup is absolutely fine. Equally, Essentials, much smaller area, but again, that's absolutely fine. Give them somewhere to hide. The box setup is great. Make sure you have a place to hide away. Make sure you have places to move to be in and out of cover. And all about it. This is battle pack terrain. So this is actually from Blackwind, but this gives you an idea of the setup. This actually came from the book that was in the Blackwind box, which looks like that. So that's how that was all set up. We miss these sets. We miss these books with how to set them up. But from the end of the table, it looks a little bit like sort of this. It's all very dramatic. But you get an idea of the density and the shape of the table and how it was set up. The buildings that are on top of the big buildings could be put at the bottom. They could be put down to give more blocking terrain as well. But don't go too crazy. Make sure that you have space to move and space to get range shots and to ARO through and all this kind of thing. Don't go too crazy. Smaller is better. Those dimensions that I gave you a minute ago are ideal for the playmat style, and playmat size. So the mission. You have your troopers. You have your table. What are we actually going to do? We're going to keep it simple. Just death. Kill as many of the enemy troopers as possible. Keep yours alive. Winner kills the most. Who goes first? Roll 1d20 each. Whoever scores highest goes first. How to deploy. Each player puts 2 troopers completely in cover so they can't be seen, and 1 trooper peeking so they can see up the board. So when the enemy comes, we can start AROing and responding. How long is the game? 3 rounds in total. So each player will get 3 active phases and 3 reactive phases. That means in total you will have 9 orders each through the entire game, 3 per round, assuming everybody lives through all the rounds. They won't. They really, really won't, but that's the maximum you're going to get to spend. The game itself should take about an hour, there or thereabouts. Maybe less, maybe more. See how it goes. And that's it for now. That is your first mission. We ran through, believe it or not, all of these points here. We have the game structure, we have the turn structure, spending order, normal rolls, face-to-face, saving rolls, getting in cover, what skills are, short skills, how to resolve, dodge, move, shoot, and stabbing people. I also covered off the arrows and stuff like that with some examples. So all of these points were covered. The first game, because we need to get those fundamentals in place, is really a lot of information, and the future games will be a lot less information. Historically, I've sort of split it out into multiple videos, and I did put it to the community that I should do it with this one, but it was overwhelmingly, nope, give us everything all at once. So you wanted it, no one has to blame but yourself. So what's next? After your first game, leave it a day, and then play that exact same mission again. 3 troopers aside, charge at each other and shoot. Because even if you were perfect on day 1, on day 2, your declarations will be trash, you'll forget how to do your rolls, all this kind of stuff. You need to get that refresher. And the objective very much with these first 2 missions is to get those processes of spending an order and doing a shoot and doing a close combat and doing a dodge as far as possible into mental muscle memory. That's where you need those to be. You need to be getting to a point where you can look at a profile and go, okay, I roughly know what I'm looking at here. This makes rough sense to me. With that done, with mission 1 and 2 done, and you've practiced your declarations and you've got your order expenditure down, we will then move on to mission 3, which is where we hit the first of our exceptions. So you've learned how a lot of things happen in this particular mission. In the next mission, you're going to learn how we can completely screw with the order declaration process by including camouflage and mimetism and all this kind of good stuff. So that will be coming from the Dice Gods soon. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, share, subscribe, leave us a comment. If you have any questions, leave us a comment. If you want to get your hands on those wonderful downloads, then there'll be a members only version of the video that go out, which will be identical to this one, but it will contain a link to the downloads for those packs, basically the cheat sheets for you to print off and use in your games. With the next missions, as this develops, the downloads will get more and more detailed with more and more information in them and army lists and suggestions and stuff like that. So if you are learning the game and you are finding the way that we do it useful and helpful, then maybe consider becoming a member or joining our Patreon, because that's where you'll get all the good stuff. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you all again soon. Goodbye.